Class is in session. What shall we study today?
May we learn much together.
So the main topic of this show, we don't, normally we would do like an interview of the guest and all that, and we are skipping that because we've already interviewed Goliath and we know who he is and we like him very much.
Thank you.
So we are going to be skipping straight into our lore, episode, if you will. And so, we had started these lore episodes with Skullomance Academy, and there's nothing like new yet to talk about, but we liked it so much that we're jumping back a little ways to the last set, which is Ashes of Outland. And there is just an incredible amount of lore here. And so without further ado, let's just begin. I think we'll kind of shift things over to Goliath, and then we can interrupt you to ask questions. And I've got a whole mess of slides here, and so we'll kind of be going through them as we discuss. And then at the end of the show, if anyone, if everyone still wants to hang out, we can talk about what we've been playing and do some co-op at the end of the show. So without further ado, Goliath, welcome to Ashes of Outland lore story time.
All right. Pleasure to be here, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just do a quick recap for those who may not have seen the previous episode about the particular relation of Hearthstone and Warcraft lore. So Hearthstone is based off of Warcraft in the sense that they are sort of like tall tales that people who live in that world tell for fun around a campfire, or in this case, around the hearth in a tavern, where they're taking a break from their adventure, setting aside any hostilities, and just kicking back and relaxing and having fun telling some stories. So just like how we have stories that stretch the truth of history and are real tall tales, like, for example, think of Johnny Appleseed or Pecos Bill, Paul Bunyan, those types of tall tales set in a historical period, but, stretching the truth. That's what Hearthstone is to Warcraft. So there are some things that are going to be direct characters from the lore. There are others that are Hearthstone unique characters, but I'm bringing them up in order to demonstrate, this is an example of this more general thing that I'm talking about. So to get started with Ashes of Outland, this is a set that covers a huge thing, because what we're talking about, Outland is essentially an entire planet, or what's left of a planet. We'll get to that later. So most Hearthstone sets deal with a smaller area, like, Saviors of Uldum is just about the region of Uldum. Ungoro, it's just about the region of Ungoro. Those are much smaller areas on a single continent. This is an entire planet, basically. So we have to go back to the very beginning. So if you could put up the first slide for us, then we can get started with the creation of what would become Outland.
All right. Yep, we're good.
Okay. So basically, Outland used to be this planet called Draenor. And Draenor was a world that was just really full of life in the way it naturally evolved. There was this it's a very savage world. It's survival of the fittest taken to the extreme, where there was this huge carnivorous plant that just evolved and consumed everything, that was known as the Evergrowth, and was kind of actually absorbed a sense of sentience after consuming just this magical energy from here, life on the planet, and et cetera, and et cetera. And so basically you have this huge hive mind plant that is dominating this entire world as it's evolving, and it's kind of terrifying. Parts of it are known as the spore mounds, and there's various different parts. Like, you have a section that is, very tropical jungle-ish, There's a section that is very, like made up of fungus and mushrooms and all that sort of stuff. And it's just consuming everything. Now, one of the most important races in the Warcraft universe are these beings called Titans. They are basically huge, giant, very powerful walking worlds that wander the cosmos. And they are very dedicated to preserving life and order. And there was this one named Agrimar who came along and saw Draenor and realized that this was just not a good situation, because eventually this Evergrowth would consume everything on the planet until there was nothing left, and then it would consume itself, and then just everything would be dead on the planet. And so, because he wanted to restore a sense of balance to this world, but he was too big and powerful, like he probably would have destroyed the world by touching it if he tried to sort things out himself, he basically transformed a mountain, like the hugest mountain on the planet, and he just infused it with a ton of magic, and it became this giant being known as Grond. And what you see in our picture right here is Grond. He's the big stone guy who's like drooling fire and everything, fighting against the Spore Mounts, who are the big leafy people. And this battle lasted for thousands of years and everything. It's a epic mythology type of origin story. But basically what happened is that as there's the huge struggle that goes on, they all destroy each other, and pieces of them become the ancestors of all the races native to this world. So and you can go to the next slide now.
Interesting. That starts to make a little bit sense now that when I start to see these. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, we're here. So I've got the Forest Warden Omu. Right.
So Omu is one of those examples of what I said is a Hearthstone original character, but is the only example of this particular race. And honestly, I have no clue what this character is doing in Scholomance, because they're on Draenor, and I don't know. Yeah, story-wise, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's a really cool character. This is a member of a race, what is known as a Botani.
It doesn't make sense yet.
Right. But like I said, it's Tall Tales. So it's probably told by someone who's had a lot of ale and just having fun. It's like, oh yeah, and there was totally a tree person at Scholomance too. Yeah, let's say that, that's the great thing about Hearthstone. You can easily use the whole Tall Tale thing to explain away inconsistencies. But yeah, so this is one of the races that come from the Evergrowth pieces breaking off. Became like big, huge, sentient tree people with bark-like skin, and they're always trying to take over Draenor again in order to keep, to have it just nothing but the growing stuff, the trees trying to take over. That's kind of one of their things. They're very powerful if you get on the bad side. Next one.
Okay.
So here we have another one. Remember, I said that there was also fungal element. These are the descendants. This Archspore Msshi'fn is the leader of this group, this race that is descended, and fortunately they are far friendlier and kind of adorable. And this is coming from me, where I have I'm not a huge fan of fungus personally, but even I have to admit that these guys are just adorable. And so they're also like a descendant of basically, magically infused pieces, like from like powerful spores and everything that came off of this giant plant creature as it was fighting the huge mountain creature Grond.
What are these guys called? Like, what's the race?
Actually, it's slipping my mind at the moment. Let me briefly
Well, it's
check.
Team 5's mind too, because they didn't give it one.
We can call it little spore guys. This is another one though. Like when you pull them up, like the artwork from WoW looks exactly like the card. So I love
Well, it's
that.
interesting that
they're called Sporelings.
Okay. Sorry, Wildcard. What were you saying?
No, it's weird though. So if these are all different sort of sub factions, it makes me wonder why they didn't start new factions as cards. Like, why isn't this a Sporeling card? You know what I mean? Like, or is that? I mean, again, it's just a design.
You know what's?
Thing, but are there enough?
You mean
cards?
like tribes?
Tribes, yeah.
Tribes,
It's interesting you bring this up though, because Celestalon posted something on Twitter earlier this week about that specifically. I think there was a card in the Jaina solo missions where it's Illidan. No, not Illidan. It's Malfurion. Malfurion comes up as a legendary card, and he's got a tribal of Night Elf. And so people started asking on Twitter, like, "Oh my God, is there going to be a new tribe called Night Elves?" And he's like, "No. Back when we made this game, it was a lot easier for us to organize everything very specifically like that, so that we could find stuff. And so all of the cards have all these different tags, and like they're meant to be hidden. You know, it was a lot easier from the game perspective, where we only had a small number of, so we have." Dragons, and we have God, why is it slipping my mind now? What are the other tribes?
Totems,
Murlocs,
pirates,
right.
elementals,
Murlocs, Max.
There you go. God, wow. See, it's been a long week. So I imagine, there's a good chance that there's more behind the scene like tags. And so someone had asked, kind of the follow up is like, oh well, will we ever see some kind of new tribe? I'm like, oh yeah, maybe, probably, who knows? And but I thought that was interesting. So I guess my point is, we very well could have a like Sporeling tribe at some point. In which case they'd
have to print enough cards for it to be worth it. Yeah.
If there's going to be any sort of tribe specific synergy that says like, if you control a Sporeling, if you control a tree ant, if you control a secret, do this thing. But I think that they could pretty easily add those tags, and because it sounds like they sort of like secretly exist in the background anyways. I didn't link that article, sorry, but I read it. Anyways, is there anything to this character, or is this just an example of like the offspring of the giant tree?
Character. Yeah, this is an actual character from Warcraft. Who is this guy? Now, the particular title of Archspore is unique to Hearthstone, but he is basically the little chieftain of this particular tribe, this village of Sporelings, and he's kind of like the gatekeeper. So that makes sense with his taunts ability right there. And the Prime is something that Hearthstone just made up right here, but it's also connected because it says that he summons the Fungal Giant. The Fungal Giant is another race that's kind of similar in that it's just a much bigger version, but it's also a descendant of the evolved things that fell off of the fungal areas of the Evergrowth.
So if this little guy was a Pokemon, he might eventually evolve into that?
You could say that, yes. Probably. So yeah. But and moving on past these plant people to the next one. Once the Evergrowth was destroyed, it allowed animal life to evolve again. And there were some really powerful beings that evolved out of it. Birds had a particular advantage because they could just fly above all of this trouble to the really high places. And through a couple of like very powerful kind of like demigod bird people that evolved, they created a race called the Arakkoa, and that's who these are right here. An example of the Sethrex, Veilweaver and the Cabal Talon Priest. And I think that there might be one or two that exist in Hearthstone as well. And they have their own entire history that would take. So basically, I have to summarize a lot of stuff. I wish we could get into these people, but there's not enough Hearthstone cards directly related to them to justify the time it would take. But just know that there was different factions that evolved, about some of them focusing on light, some of them focusing on shadow, some focusing on wielding arcane magic, and there is, backstabbing and political stuff, and some of them got devolved and lost the ability to fly, and that's why the ones in these cards, they're all like hunched over and look like they're kind of the dark magic types. That's what these particular ones are right here.
The Cabal Talon Priest was always a favorite of mine back in Dragon Priest, when in its like sort of original inception, just 2 of everything. That was a really fun deck.
Yeah, I agree.
You wish to live forever.
Yeah, hey, man, you're good at those. Hey, is there any reason? I had to step out for 2 seconds. Is there any reason why we see a bunch of these as priest cards versus other classes?
Well, like I said, that generally involving well, for these ones in particular, they're the ones who are wielding the darker magic, and so it fits in with the flavor of Shadow Priest better than any of the other classes.
Oh, Shadow Priest. That's what I didn't catch on. Like, I was thinking Priest, isn't that good? Nah, but we've got Shadow Priest as well.
No, you see, like I'm not sure, but it might even be the majority of
priest cards,
like the void users and everything.
That's funny.
or old god related. I haven't counted, but I don't know. It's either split even, or there might even be more of the evil priest cards at this point. I'm not sure.
Oh god, you're probably right. Priest as a class is genuinely evil. I can confirm that.
It didn't used to be. Nobody played that. Everybody always complained that it was underpowered for years. And now everyone hates on it so much.
That's the circle of life in Hearthstone. A class is terrible. People complain. They make it good. People complain. They make it bad again.
The res mechanic drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I don't see big priests anywhere at this point, because they made me quit Wild for a little while.
I feel you there. Okay, are we moving on to the next one?
Yes.
All right.
So
the ogres.
So we talked about the creatures that the spore mounds. We talked a bit about the Arakkoa being just kind of evolving from other animals that stood a chance now, but there are also like magically infused pieces of rock that fell off of Grommash during the fight. And they became known as the Colossals, and they helped to continue the fight against the plant people. But basically what happens is that over a very long period of time, they break down and evolve and or devolve, depending on how you look at it, into different types of races. So you have like Colossals that become these beings called Megaron, and ones that get infused with the spores, and so they start evolving into like half rock, half flesh beings. And you got like Gron and Ogron and like these different creatures, until eventually you get these completely flesh beings called Ogres. And they built this big empire called the Gorefiend Empire, and it were a really powerful force on Draenei for a long time. They focused a lot on arcane magic, as you can see in the Ogre Magi. Some of them could be quite intelligent in the magical department. A lot of them, not so much. Very much the dumb brute types. You can see with the Boulder Fist Ogre.
I'm ready. I'm not ready.
And sometimes the magically inclined are often the ones who would be born with 2 heads, because that helped to make them a bit more intelligent. I'm not entirely certain how that works, but somehow having 2 heads makes them more intelligent and magically inclined. And so they were very, very powerful force for a while. But the evolution didn't stop there, because some of the ogres evolved and or devolved, depending on how you look at it, into a smaller but more intelligent race known as orcs. And this is where orcs come from. Orcs are the great, etc. Evolutionary descendants of a magically infused mountain that was created to fight a giant plant.
Wow.
Okay.
So,
Any questions?
Like say, for example, like the Ogre Magi and the Bladefist Ogre, are they of the same time, or did the Ogre Magi come before the Bladefist Ogre, or were they fighting alongside each other?
There's classes and caste systems that they have, and that sort of thing. Obviously the Magi would be near the top, and the things like the Bladefist would be more like grunts. But generally, they're very capable of existing at the same time there.
They're all part of the same army, essentially. Then.
Yes.
Okay.
So
just serving very different roles.
So the 2 heads, though, is like almost like a status thing, right? They're more intelligent. They're higher above the others.
Exactly, and it's very rare for one to actually. So that's that's just a status in itself. Like kind of like a person getting born with the royal birth or something, you might say.
Gotcha. All right, so we're moving on into orcs. Next up I've got Beastmaster Leoroxx.
Yes. So this is a interesting and slightly disturbing element of the right here, where the ogres were very powerful and generally quite cruel. They liked enslaving the orcs and everything. So the orcs would remember this is all very savage world, fight to survive type of thing here on Draenor. It's how things have naturally evolved, and so there's orc raids, trying to break the power of the ogre empire and everything. And as ways to fight against the orcs, so one thing that the ogres did at one point was they captured several orcs and forced them to interbreed with ogres, and created this new race known as the Mok'Nathal. So they're basically half orc, half ogre, and they were enslaved by the ogres and eventually gaining freedom at some future point in history. And so Beastmaster Leoroxx right here is in his particular time, is the leader, the chieftain of all of the Mok'Nathal.
Okay, so these are half ogre, half orc.
Yes.
All right.
Now so the screenshot right here is not the greatest because they don't really have Mok'Nathal models. Mm-hmm. The art of the card is actually one of the best depictions we've had because they could just draw things that weren't dependent on a game model. So really looking like something is half ogre, half orc.
Now, one thing I believe we're going to get into this later, but these guys are at least the orcs right now. Like we're all used to, those of us who started out with Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2, like we're used to little green orcs, and I noticed that these orcs are all kind of a yellow, tan, orange, whatever color. So I believe we're getting into that later, though, right?
Yeah. We're that's a huge part of the story that we're going to get into.
Exciting.
Just establishing the who's who on Draenor.
And
I love that part of the story. Actually,
Well, isn't there? Well, anyways, we'll get to it later. But now, who? I mean, I know the answer to this, but let me ask you, like, what is the significance of Beastmaster Leoroxx in regards to our favorite hunter hero?
Yep. Well, he is Rexxar's dad.
Say what?
Now, the thing is that Mok'Nathal are actually very peaceful by nature. They had their fill of war, enslavement, They don't like it. Rexxar is a bit more of a fighter, and so he actually became like estranged from his dad because his dad like, no, you got to stay peaceful. Rex is like, nope, I'm going off to go and fight. And they actually became an estranged family that had to reconcile later on.
Interesting. Now I noticed that Leoroxx here has some kind of like saber-toothed tiger type pet, and then we know that Rexxar has Misha the bear. Is that something with their tribe thing? Is that a hunter thing? Is that a Mok'Nathal thing, or is that, we don't know?
I mean, obviously, when you live in like this, it is very, hunt to survive type. It probably would be very prominent in their culture. Mok'Nathal specifically is not something we have a ton of specific lore on, so we don't know all the details of their societies and everything. But I'd say like it's not like every Mok'Nathal was a hunter, but it makes sense that it would be something that would maybe particularly be in Rexxar's family or the way that he was raised or some sort of tribal aspect that he was inspired by and took as his calling. Okay.
Is there anything else? Oh, sorry, Wildcard, I keep cutting you off. Go for it. You have a question?
You're good. Yeah, is that why he says, I hunt alone? Is that because he broke off from his family? Is that sort of the...
Yeah, he's the lone wanderer who just...
Sorry, you cut out for a second.
He's the lone wanderer who
we lost you there.
That's the whole I hunt alone thing.
Okay. But he's separated from his dad and his family and his group to go do his hunting thing on his own. Okay, that's interesting.
Right.
Is there any more like lore focused around this character, or should we move on to the next one?
I think it's time to move on to the next one because anything else with Rexxar is later on in storyline, so we don't want to get too mixed up here.
Yeah, so I do have Rexxar here, and so Rexxar, again, this is a Mok'Nathal, so Rexxar is half ogre, half orc.
Correct.
Okay.
I did not know that. That's really cool.
Well, can I ask real quick?
He likes to cosplay as Batman.
Especially for the audio listeners, maybe can you tell us what distinctive features are orc only and what are Mok'Nathal features that you can distinguish the difference?
Okay, sure. So his body build, it's a lot larger, it's a lot bulkier than an orc. That's more things along the ogre side. Now, obviously, like I said, he has this wolf helm that looks like he's doing the Batman cosplay. But so you can't entirely see his face. You can see it a bit more with in the art for Beastmaster Leoroxx. But they have a bit more of the face is a bit more of a mesh. But what really sets them apart is the intelligence that they are. They were basically bred to have the physical strength of the ogre, but having the fighting spirit and the strategic intelligence that orcs had, which was an advantage over ogres. And so the ogres are like, okay, we're going to breed a people to protect us from the orcs. That's the best of both.
Okay, very cool.
So it's mostly gray matter then.
It kind of, yeah. Like that's the most that I can find words to describe at this point. As far as I know, there is not a Warcraft anatomy book about that sort of thing, though. Come to think of it, that would be pretty awesome if they were to publish that.
So is there anything specific about Rexxar in terms of this Ashes to Outland story? Or is this just a kind of descendant line, like showing where the descendants of the mountain came from?
Well, yes and no, because Rexxar's big thing that sets him apart is that he ended up becoming a champion of the Horde later on after its form. So he's pretty much the only Mok'Nathal that's in Azeroth, where the majority of the story takes place, and all the rest are still in Outlands. He actually became known as a champion of the Horde, like a really high position in it. So that's something that particularly sets him apart. At one point, he did, when circumstances that we'll talk about later on had the Alliance and Horde going to Outland, that's when he kind of reunited and reconciled with his dad a bit, because his dad is like, we're under a lot of threats. Maybe the whole bad thing after all.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's cool that they reconciled, though. I mean, I like
that. Maybe not completely, but at least on better terms.
Yeah.
They hugged it out.
Yeah.
All right. Should I move on to the next one?
Yes. Now we come to where things really get rolling here, because that's essentially the Descents getting the chessboard is set up with the basic race. Excuse me. But now we have, if I may be so bold as to say, a wild card that is played here.
Sorry, let me interrupt you for just 2 seconds. For the audio listeners, we have a Prophet Velen up on the screen. So
yes.
All right, carry on.
So essentially, right here we have the Draenei. This is basically the equivalent of an alien crash landing on Earth right here. Because the Draenei are from an entire different planet called Argus, and they had a whole civilization there and everything. But then it kind of got taken over by the demons of the Burning Legion, and they keep on chasing the Draenei around in this, essentially as a spaceship. And then the spaceship basically breaks and crashes right onto Draenor. And so then which is, by the way, why it becomes known as Draenor to most people, because it's what the Draenei call it. It's the land where the Draenei live, Draenor. Even though they're not actually the natives, you would tend to call it like Orcanor or something. But we know it as Draenor because of that. And
Okay.
Velen is the leader here. He's the prophet, and there's their whole society. They're basically trying to survive. They get along with the orcs for a while. Relatively peaceful things. I mean, the orcs are, like I said, from the orcs' perspective, this is what we would feel if, alien spaceship crashes in your backyard and starts setting up a little town or something. You kind of get a little freaked out, wouldn't you?
What's that movie with
so,
Jim Carrey where the spaceship lands in the pool in the backyard? I think it's called Earth. Oh, actually, I shouldn't say the name of that movie. Never mind. It's called Earth Chicks Are Easy.
Oh,
I forgot about that movie.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
So the Draenei, these are interesting. Like these folks have purple skin and tentacles where their chins should be. And okay, these guys have like the kind of hooven feet as well.
Yeah. They're basically, a lot of people when talking about the game, a lot of players like to refer to them as space goats. Tentacle space goats.
Space
Coast to
goats,
coast.
coast to
Yeah.
coast.
That's what many players like to refer to them as.
Oh my God,
and of course,
love
I
it.
absolutely love Belen's long, luscious beard there. It's amazing. But yeah, so Velen is the leader there. And an interesting thing that happens is that so there are these beings called that were helping them out. They're basically creatures made out of light. And one of them kind of died in the crash, but one of the results of where its body ended up laying, because it's, like made of light and everything, holy magic, is that it started attracting the spirits of the Draenei who died in the crash. And that's where the Solmir comes from on our next slide right here.
Oh yeah, okay. So the next slide is the Soul Mirror, which is the legendary priest spell from
yes.
I don't even know what's said anymore.
Outland.
That's terrible.
We're
Makes
focusing
sense.
on Outland cards here. But yeah, so basically the Draenei discovered we can communicate with the spirits of the deceased Draenei here because their souls are attracted to this area. So they built this giant mausoleum city of the dead called the Arkandun. And the Soul Mirror is this crystal that allows them to communicate with the spirits. And so this card's effect is summon the copy of the enemy minions, kind of like, your ancestor or your soul double or something that's being summoned from the power of the Soul Mirror.
That's pretty good flavor, actually. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
I didn't notice this until I had pulled up the artwork, I had Googled it, but the character in the Soul Mirror card mirrors the one from WoW, right below. It's it's wearing the same armor, so clearly it's a Draenei, I don't know, warrior or something. But what is there any significance to that character?
Well, that he's the member of a special order of Draenei to protect the spirits of the dead in Arkandun right there.
Okay.
When they became under threat. And so basically order that's meant to protect the area.
Very cool. It reminds me of the Royal Guard from Star Wars.
Yeah.
This is making me want a priest-based
too.
expansion or something.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, kind of would actually. Yeah, there's a lot more space stuff in this fantasy story than you might initially expect there to be. And the Draenei are big contributors to that. Yeah, they have teleportation, from Star Trek, and they have all their spaceships and everything, and they're from a different planet. And
we need spaceship cards that you put on the board, and you can load your minions into it, kind of like a bunker in StarCraft.
I thought that sort of thing could be really cool too. I've tried to get into Magic the Gathering 3 separate times, and just my Hearthstone brain finds it way too complicated. But I remember once when I tried to do it, it was a set that was out. They were having these vehicle cards in Magic. It was an invention themed one or something. And you could load minions into this vehicle card in order to activate special things. That would be something really cool to have in Hearthstone.
Huh. All right. Okay. Should I move along to the next one?
Yes. Because now,
all right. Next we have
things get really bad here.
So we have Gul'Dan here, and I've got the screenshot of him from World of Warcraft, but I've also got both hero portraits of his normal one and then his 1K portrait, because his 1K portrait really mirrors his appearance in the game.
Yeah, it's amazing, and that's probably the 1K portrait I'm the closest to getting, just because I tend to play ranked with Warlock a lot. I'm not that close to getting it, but I'm probably going to get it before any other.
Very
and
cool.
I do really like it.
Okay, so he's an orc, right? But he's and he's green.
Yep.
All right.
So basically, the reason he's green is also the reason that he's the Warlock hero. Because he was the first orc. And in World of Warcraft and Hearthstone, being a Warlock means that you're dealing with the fell, chaotic magic of the Twisting Nether that is the same magic that the demons of the Burning Legion use, often generally involving getting packs or summoning those demons or working for them or whatever. Now, Gul'Dan was basically he was a, what's the word that I'm looking for? Freeloader in his tribe. He was a cripple and was just not really good for anything. And he tried to be a shaman, but the elemental spirits didn't like him because that's what being a shaman is all about, communicating with the elemental spirits, because they sense that this guy is nasty. We don't want anything to do with him. So eventually, even the very magic of the earth wanted nothing to do with this guy. And so he basically ended up as the vehicle for the Demons of the Burning Legion because they were looking to invade Azeroth, but they had tried that in the past and it didn't really work. So their new plan was, okay, we're going to create this powerful army that is going to wear down all the people that beat us back the last time. And since they'll all be tired out, they won't be able to fight us off when we invade this next time. And that was the whole goal, that they wanted to corrupt the entire Orcish race and turn them into slaves of the Burning Legion. And Gul'Dan was all too happy to sell out his entire race to being slaves if it meant that he could have power and someone who didn't completely reject him.
What a guy. What a guy.
Yeah, he's like the most supremely selfish character in all of Warcraft, I think. And yeah, so the thing is, like, the green skin happens to be from infusing with the Fel magic there.
I mean, I imagine
that's why he is.
Yeah, I mean, his other orc folks probably look at him weird, right? Like, they're like, how come you're the only green one here? It's like, well, I'm doing dark Fel magic and turn my skin green.
No, that's the thing. It all had to be in secret. So, like, you know, he can't let them know that he's doing that. He works really hard to corrupt them without them realizing it in gradual stages. Where first he tricks them into thinking that the peaceful Draenei are out to get them, and he arranges for them to slaughter a whole bunch of Draenei, and that's when the first horde is actually established.
So is he sort of like an outcast? Like, is he out and hiding in his, like, cave somewhere, you know, like orchestrating from behind the scenes?
Exactly. He is the puppet master. You guys remember the card Shadow Council?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
That Shadow Council is the secret group of orcs that he founded to control all of the orcs and behind the scenes to gradually corrupt them. And on the next slide, we have his basically second in command, Cho'gall.
Cho'gall is very clearly a two-headed ogre, right? I mean...
Yep.
But he looks different because he's got these, like, spikes growing out his back. So, and he's got, like, eyeballs where his nipples should be.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Which I guess is great for him because he doesn't have to worry about being censored. I don't know. But yeah, so Cho'gall has an interesting, unique story where, so he was obviously, like you said, two-headed ogre, powerful member of the Empire. They actually were really afraid of him, and so they kicked him out so that they didn't want him to overthrow or anything. That just made him madder. And he met up with Gul'Dan and joined the Shadow Council, and he was put in charge of working with this orc tribe that was known as the Twilight's Hammer Tribe. Now, they were very much about worshipping the void and longed for the end of all things, the hour of twilight, when the forces of darkness would consume everything. And Cho'gall was put in charge of recruiting them into Gul'Dan's team. And so at first he just kind of pretended to be like the prophesied, I'll lead you to the hour type of thing, and you know, we're working on corrupting people, and we're forming this huge army that's going to cause a lot of destruction, and it's going to be great. It's totally what you guys want. So at first he was just pretending, but then he eventually became a true believer in their dark causes.
He drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, he drank the well. We're going to get to drinking the Kool-Aid in just a bit. In a more literal sense. But so eventually, when the Horde would end up on Azeroth, was when he would meet the old gods and become their champion. And it was through their corruption, that's why he has like the spikes and the eyeballs. And that's very old god-y type of stuff. Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Is there a reason that,
And
because you
then-
talked about the Fel being the thing that corrupts them, right, and it made them green, but why is everything purple or indigo colored?
You mean with Cho'gall?
But Cho'gall, even Gul'Dan's original portrait, he's actually he's indigo colored. If you want to go back.
Well, for the Gul'Dan, that's really just an art style thing.
Okay.
It's more just like he's wearing. It's like the way that they're showing the light shining on his robe and from his magic and stuff. His skin it's kind of green, but it looks a bit on the grayish side when mixed with the blue. That's why I like the updated art for the new one that clearly shows, oh yeah, he is actually green.
He's the green machine. I got you.
And so we're talking about two different sources of magic. The demons in the Fel is manifest as green, although I will later talk about when you overdose on it, it actually goes red. But Old God and Void magic is always of the purple, black, indigo type of stuff that you're talking about there.
Okay.
So two different types of evil magic. And actually they kind of are at odds with each other.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because So anyway,
all right.
and then we move on to Grommash Hellscream.
Who's
Yeah.
green.
The original classic warrior legendary.
Right.
Which, by the
And
way,
this
how
is
is this card still? I never see anyone playing this card these days. Is it good for anything? do you think?
In standard, they're playing it in Rage Warrior.
yeah, it's not bad in standard at the moment.
Okay.
I don't think it's been good in wild since like
They play with a Risky Skipper.
with Risky Skipper. It's pretty crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or I saw some people playing it in like Recruit Warrior as well. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't played it in Wild. I think since Patron Warrior was big. But
Yeah, it's like you got to damage him first. That's the thing. You know, there's got to be a proc as well as popping it out.
yeah.
So that's what slows down. Little just tools just slow
Right.
it.
Which the risky skipper does.
Yeah.
So Grom
The instant you
here,
play him, yeah.
Grom here in the artwork. Two things to note. Number one, he's not green. So this is pre-green Grom, and his giant axe. That's Gorehowl, right?
That is correct.
Rock and roll. I see. I do know. I do know a tiny bit. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
My,
right,
my
right,
Gold
right.
Hollow is golden, by the way.
I like it.
Yeah, Gorehowl is interesting. Well, it was made before they started making legendary. So technically, it would qualify as a legendary weapon, significant, recognized, unique weapon held by a significant character. But it has to settle for being epic because they weren't a thing back when it was made as a card.
Right. Right.
But
Okay. So what
yeah,
is the significance of Grom here?
Well, he was the chieftain of this group of orcs called the War Song Clan. And it's like, really powerful fighters, everything. And he was the first one that Gul'Dan was able to completely corrupt and enslave to the Legion. Because the way that he did that was he got them to drink demon blood.
I see.
You heard me right. He convinced them that they needed to be more powerful, and the way to do that was to drink demon blood. What he did not tell them was that it would turn their skin green, give them a permanent bloodlust where they would always want to destroy stuff, and would completely shackle their wills to their demon masters. So, fine print.
Wait, is that why his eyes are glowing red by any chance in the picture?
Yes, that's like the constant rage, the bloodlust that the orcs were all.
Okay. No,
afflicted
I
with
wasn't sure
when they
because
drank the demon blood.
you were talking about when you overdose on the Fel magic stuff, right? Did it present it as like red instead of green, or is this different?
That's
this
correct.
is like blood. This is the kind of
This
thing.
this is different. This is the bloodlust. We'll get
Gotcha.
to the overdose in just a little bit. But yeah, and then the slide that we have next is the image of him drinking the blood of Mannoroth, who was the name of the demon that Gul'Dan got it from.
So how did that come about? Did he have to like kill the demon, or did the demon sacrifice itself, or did the
the demon is just goes because he wants this to happen. Obviously, it's part of the master plan. And it's just a bit of bloodletting, just cuts open and drains some blood into this stone bowl type of thing here, and just all right, everybody, line up and swig.
Wow. I love this picture, though. I mean, you really see Gul'Dan kind of plotting in the background, and Grom is up here with the giant gore howl drinking the blood.
Yeah. And by the way, these for anyone interested in the artwork here, most of these come from the Warcraft Chronicle books, which is where I do a lot of my research. Mostly Volume 2 right here, which talks about the orcs and Draenor a lot. And then also Volume 3 for some of the later stuff right here, for anyone who's curious.
Nice.
They're a lot thinner than I thought they would be, because it seems like a lot of information here.
Oh, they're pretty thick.
Okay.
The artwork is gorgeous. I may have to look into those.
You've just got Nate.
I think you did. I mean, I buy the Hearthstone art books because there's some text, but it's mostly art. But God, they're gorgeous.
I'm so excited for the one coming. The Mammoth one is actually coming out right around my birthday, so it's nice. At the top of my wish list. And then I'm also happy for the Year of the Raven is coming out in the spring, so we don't have to wait a full.
Yeah, that'll be nice. Okay, so Grom, you said, so I call him Grom, but it's Grommash, right? Hellscream is the first one to drink the demon blood and turn green and become enslaved to the demons. So does then he give it to his clan or his group or whatever?
Yeah, basically he's just basically this is the orc version of because he is the leader of a very powerful clan. And so they're like, well, if Grom's doing it, then we should probably do it too, huh?
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, I guess contextually, if we're on Draenor and this is a kill or be killed style, and this presumably is making them more powerful,
right.
I imagine they probably don't see it at first as a weakness or a enslavement. It's we're going to get even more powerful.
Right. No, they're being tricked into it.
Right. Interesting. Okay. All right. I like this. Okay, I'll move on to the next one. So we have Teron Gorefiend.
Right. So this is skipping ahead just a little bit. Essentially, what is that Gul'Dan builds the dark portal that is able to take the orc army from Draenor, which, by the way, is kind of dying now because, as it turns out, when you're wielding around magic that it basically creates from draining life and creating chaos everywhere, it's kind of bad for the environment. And so
who would have thought?
Yeah, and so basically they're motivated is okay, our world's dying, and they're not putting the pieces together that it's because of this warlock magic. I mean, the warlocks know it, but they don't care. That the other people are just we got to go to a new world, conquer a new home. And so they go through the dark portal to invade Azeroth. And this is where the very first game takes place. All of this has been a bunch of backstory. So this is where the first clash between the human kingdoms, the first version of the Alliance, and then the Orcish Horde. And basically then there's the first war, and then there's another second war. And as a part of that second war, Gul'Dan basically is obligated because the orcs are kind of starting to catch on to what he's all about here. And he's okay, I have to make myself really useful and help them get victory or they're going to kill me. because like he's powerful, but he's also an old hunchback. So there's only so much he can do if like the entire army turns on him. So he and his warlocks work to create these new powerful soldiers called Death Knights, which basically what they do is they kill human knights and they kill orc warlocks and they stuff the soul of the orc warlock into the dead body of the human knight. And they have very powerful necromantic magic and just have this aura of terror about them, kind of like the Nazgul in the Lord of the Rings. Okay. And they're very effective weapons right here. So like they look like humans, but they're technically orcs.
Okay, and we talked about this. We talked about this a little bit last time. This is very different than the Death Knights that were brought about through Kael'thas and the Liches, right? This is the first incantation of the Death Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah. This version is basically the stuffing of one soul into another body. The Death Knights that we're familiar with from is a corrupted or controlled soul that is imperfectly bound to its body. Okay. So it's two different types of undeath in that sense. And so Teron Gorefiend is like, remember he says, I was the first, He literally was. He was the first orc warlock to get raised as a Death Knight. He was like, you would say that he's the first successful test, like the first guinea pig that actually worked out.
So I guess, if we read into one of my kind of ongoing questions, if you will, is how does the card in Hearthstone compare to the character in the game? Like, what is the relation? Like we talked a lot about in Scholomance, like, and I actually see the flavor here that if we're talking about how Death Knights are created by killing the human and stuffing the orc soul into it, like that is very on par with his battle cry here: destroy other friendly minions and then resummon them with +1/+1. Like that's like creating more.
I know this is one of my favorite flavor matches.
That's like spot on. I really like it.
Me too.
What's crazy is like we play this game casually. Like that has the battle cry and the death rattle has zero meaning. You just like, oh well, that's a cool ability. But like knowing the lore behind it, like takes a whole other meaning. That's really neat.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And he also just has an amazing.
Sorry, you cut out for a second. What is it? You said he's got a really amazing animation.
Yeah. When you play him and like the drag that's down and everything.
Crazy. All right, I haven't played him that much. I haven't, but I need to play him more.
Yeah.
Is there any significance to the horse, or is that just his steed?
That's just his steed. Yeah. Okay. Maybe if it has a name, I'm not aware of it.
So presumably he's the first, and then they create a whole mess of these as well.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Shall I move on?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, because now we're finally getting to where this becomes Outland. It's no longer Draenor, it's Outland.
Because, so I've got a picture here. Like what is this?
What's going on here is this is a powerful orc shaman named Ner'zhul, who I might add is a very significant character and really should become a Hearthstone card sometime in the near future. I would love to see him make it that. But essentially, Teron Gorefiend talked him into attempting to, they're like, okay, so we've been beaten back when we try to conquer Azeroth, and that hasn't been working well. But there's a lot of other worlds out there. Surely one of them has to be weak enough for us to be able to conquer, right? And so what he does is they invade Azeroth in order to steal some powerful magic relics and try to perform this ritual to open up portals to other worlds. Just one little problem is that really powerful spells that tear holes in reality tend to require a lot of precision. And this spell didn't really go very well. It opened up portals. It just kind of opened up way too many portals and basically like tore reality apart, and the entire planet was shattered and like isn't even fully on the material realm. It's like partially in the physical world and partially in the twisting nether, just completely surrounded by the fell magic and stuff. And so, and interestingly, what happened here is Ner'zhul, he tried to escape. He kind of got captured by the demons in the Burning Legion, and King.
Wait,
so that's the origin of the Lich King right there.
Wait, sorry, but you cut out. He got captured by the demons in the Burning Legion, and then what happened?
They turned him into the first Lich King.
Oh, whoa, okay.
That's the origin of the Lich King right there before Arthas came along.
Was it all the same armor and everything? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, very special armor, which actually we're going to learn more about in the Shadowlands expansion of Warcraft that's coming out next month.
Ooh.
Which I'm really excited about.
Okay.
So then the whole world is completely shattered, and it's Outland now.
Wow,
and
I'm surprised that we didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And like Gobbledygook is saying in the chat, I'm surprised that he wasn't part of the Outland set. It seems like a major character.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. He needs to be a card.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so next up I have Magtheridon. He's a giant demon.
Mm-hmm. So you remember how I mentioned that it's partially in the physical realm and partially in the nether? Basically what that means is that Outland is now this amazing crossroads and highway of a whole bunch of different portals where demons can easily get from one place to the next across the universe.
Okay.
So it's kind of like how in history where you have people who fight wars over having very strategic pieces of land for things like trade or to move armies across. That's basically what the demons are doing, where they want to take over Outlands. And Magtheridon is the general they send to conquer and rule over it. And what he does is he enslaves the remaining orcs who are still there. And this is where the overpower the fell that makes you red comes in, because as we see on the next part with Kargath Bladefist, is that basically, like, because they had already drank demon blood, which turned them green.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're given even more demon blood. Just force, like they're kind of, it's like injected and infused, like blood transfusion right into their veins and stuff. And that supercharges them, makes them like completely destructive and chaotic, and like it breaks their minds. They're just like insane now, and like overcharged with the Fel, and that turns them into the crazy red-skinned Fel Orcs.
Okay, I just switched the slide here. So we've got the Fel Orcs, and then I'll jump back to the Bladefist guy.
Sure.
Okay, so all right, let me just recap super quick because I was thinking about Magtheridon. So they first drank the demon blood, which turned them from, yellowy orange color to green, and now they're like supercharged on demon blood, and now they've just fully turned red.
Exactly.
And what are they called? These are called Fel Orcs, is that right? Or what's
yes, because they're just like completely infused with Fel magic.
Gotcha. Okay. So there's a couple cards up on the screen that are just examples of Fel Orcs in Hearthstone. So Bone Chewer Vanguard is one, Dragonmoth Sky Stalker is one. And they're a little bit hard to see, but essentially they're red-skinned orcs.
Yeah, and those are so that there were different clans. Like I said, Grommash was the leader of the group called the Warsong clan. The Bone Chewer clan is one, known to be cannibals. The Dragon Maw were a clan that specialized in taming flying mounts, and so then they were good at enslaving dragons and stuff. And that these and a whole bunch of other ones just kind of all got pushed into a conglomerate of one crazy Fel Orc clan that was forced to serve the demons now.
Okay. So if we jump back, I've got Kargath Bladefist here, and we can see in the artwork like his before and after picture. So you can see like original orc, and then after he has been like Fel supercharged. And so I know that the primes, like Kargath Prime, when they turn him into like, you know, the like the Terminator, and they put all the mechanics on him. Like that's a little overboard. I think that's Hearthstone specific lore, right? But you can see here clearly, gosh, he lost his second hand. How do you
he's got a chainsaw. He is Ash.
Well, the question is, how does he make his mac and cheese? You know, that's
how does he
with a chainsaw.
How does he get dressed? How does he put on those giant shoulder blades with no hands? I mean,
I never thought about that. He's Edward Sword Hands.
How do you go to the restroom? Right now? Okay, these are the important questions we want to know.
You cannot zip up your fly like that.
Yeah,
accidents
it's called a bidet, okay?
But this is another one though where they truly pulled the artwork from the game like onto the card. Like it's like exact. I mean, it's so good. I really like it.
Yeah. And so Kargath specifically is he was a gladiator who was forced to fight in the Ogre Empire. And he founded a new clan, slaves, where he led a revolt, where he cut off his own hand that was chained. That was the thing keeping him, and just like bound a sword to it. And his other gladiators did the same. And that they started their own clan called the Shattered Hand, full of these really brutal things of self-mutilation that they thought made them stronger. And they kind of like were masochists who loved pain. And so yeah, they would just like chop off their own limbs in order to replace them with more weapons, which they thought made them more efficient and everything. And then after they go super crazy on the Fel stuff, it's just like, you know, that they go even more over it.
Yeah, it's like One Punch Man. He went so crazy on the juice that all his hair fell out, and he grew a horn too.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay then. All right. So let's see. The next slide up I've got is Zixor. Zixor Apex Predator.
And this one's for you, Mike, if you're watching. You could be here right now. Interested in this one.
Right.
But so unfortunately, Zixor as a character, it's Hearthstone original and does not have any specific lore. However, it's a perfect example of what I was talking about with the complete corruption of the land, because, like I said, you know, we thought the Fel was bad for the environment before. Now it's just a bunch of floating rocks literally surrounded by a universe of the stuff, and all the plants and a lot of the animal life and everything gets twisted because of it. So these are creatures that used to be called forest stalkers. And they were, you know, basically, you know, common reptilian predators that were pretty good at camouflage, very effective hunters. But when they got exposed to all of this Fel evil magic penetrating, they became what are called warp stalkers. And these guys can literally phase in and out of reality. It's like the perfect camouflage and just like move around really fast. And they're really fast and aggressive hunters because of it. And that's what the mechanics are representing, how it can just like rush like the artist. It's pouncing right at you. And the prime ability is the whole summon 3 copies is demonstrating how it can like phase in and out of reality and attack you so fast that it feels like they're ones at the same time.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. Do they hunt in like pairs or anything too, or are they solo?
I think it's possible they might hunt in packs. There's
I mean, it doesn't really
detailed
matter,
lore
but
to know that for certain, but it is entirely possible. I mean, so. But yeah, that's what Zixor is. He is basically a named character of a beast called the Warp Stalker, which are found on Outland because of it. And you can see like apex predator. He's one of the best of those predators.
very
Like an
cool.
alpha, like an alpha dog or something, right?
What was that?
Oh, sorry. I mean, it said so. He's like the alpha dog of the pack, then, right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Oh, I think.
Did we lose you?
I think my Bluetooth briefly went out.
He's the alpha dog of his pack.
He's the alpha male.
Yes.
Alpha dog.
All right. Next up, we've got the Hearthstone cards. Anyhow, Shadow Jeweler Hanar, Akama, and Greyheart Sage. So these look very much like the Draenei, but they're purple. So is this a corrupted race? Or I mean, I guess you'll tell us. Are we having technical difficulties real quick? Here, let me. I'm going to pause the recording super quick. Okay, so we're back. We just jumped onto the next slide, which is Shadow Jeweler Hanar, Akama, and Greyheart Sage, which look very much like the Draenei, but they're like dark purple, and they've got green eyes, and so I assume that's some sort of like Fel Draenei or something.
Exactly. So you guys know the type of thing like often in sci-fi where there's a place of radioactive waste and it like mutates or spawns some sort of creature. That's basically what's going on right here, where basically the Draenei have magical radiation poisoning, and some of them, it affects them not so badly. Some of them are relatively unscathed. Shadow Jeweler Hanar is an original Hearthstone character, but he reflects that. Draenei who are still living on Outlands, but are relatively okay in that sense. But others, like Akama and the Greyheart Sage that we have here, become very deformed by it, and they become known as the Broken. And interestingly is that it actually robs them of the ability to wield the light and holy magic. And so that's where some of them start becoming, they turn to other forms like embracing the elements and shamanism. So that's where why you can be a Draenei shaman in the game. That's the story behind that.
We have got evil space goats.
They are representing the rogue class because they are in a very dangerous world and they have to be very good at being stealthy because everything on Outland is trying to kill them.
Interesting. Okay. I know Akama's got a pretty big story that we're going to touch on, or at least an impactful story. What about Shadow Jeweler Hanar? Is that a Hearthstone creation?
Okay, just a sec. I think that my earbuds are running out of battery. I'm gonna switch to my headphones for something more dependable.
Perfect.
Cool. Just
all right.
a sec.
Okay, so we're back. So we were talking about these, essentially, they're called the Broken, which are sort of like Fel corrupted Draenei. They're still purple,
right?
But now they've
not
got
corrupted.
This.
Yeah.
So the picture here is this Shadow Jeweler Hanar? Like it looks awfully similar, but I don't really know. He's got the hood though, so.
No, Hanar is a Hearthstone original character, but he's very representative of what some of these look like, and just a lot of them end up wearing the hoods. It becomes a part of their culture type of thing.
I guess
trying to stay hidden.
All the cards they're wearing the hood, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think when you were gone, Hydra was asking this. At least this character here from WoW has got these scars like all over his body. Is that a trait, like a class specific thing, or is there any significance to that?
Just that it's a very hard life, and they've been pretty beat up and everything. This one in the image in particular is a Broken who's been forced to work as a slave for the Legion. So, maybe some whiplashes or
That could be
something.
why. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. All right, cool. All right, so let me move to the next one, which is Illidan Stormrage. We could talk for hours just on this guy right here, so I'm not quite sure what.
Yeah.
I think we would probably just touch the surface tonight.
Oh, yes, definitely. Illidan is a whole story on his own, a very long story. But all that you need to know for our purposes right now is that Illidan is someone who is dedicated to using the powers of the demons in order to destroy the Burning Legion itself. He's a very strong advocate of the fight fire with fire, and he's like, I'll sacrifice everything if it means I'll destroy my enemies. He's extremely emo about it all. And
well, and if we could yeah, I mean, we should do a separate episode maybe sometime, or maybe if they get into a book of heroes for him, which I don't know whether or not they will, but
I think they will, because I think they said there's going to be 10 of them.
They did, but they also, and I agree with you, and they said they were going to do one for each, but I almost wonder, just because they did his story in the intro prologue.
They did the first part of his story. There's
That's
a lot
true.
of it left that they could pick up on.
Can you do just a super big picture overview? I mean, essentially, he started out as a night elf, and then he hooked up with the demons in order to get their power, in order to fight the demons.
Exactly. But the rest of the night elves are just like, you demons, we don't want anything to do with that. Basically, Illidan is the ideology that the end justifies the means, and the other night elves are of the belief that, beware those who slay monsters, you become a monster.
Okay.
So yeah, in order to briefly summarize, and so basically Illidan needs a new base of operations.
Did he get kicked out of wherever he was after?
Yeah, he was exiled by the Night Elves, and also he kind of tricked and double-crossed the demons, so he's looking for a place to hide from them, and so he figures that Outland will be a great place to set up operations.
This reminds me of Star Wars so much, right? Where he's now this rebel, right? Because the Night Elves don't want him. The demons are trying to kill him. Meanwhile, he is sprouted horns, grown wings, and burned his eyes out with fel magic. And talk about outcast, right? But super powerful.
He got from absorbing the magic of the skull of Gul'Dan.
Okay.
So that's where that comes in.
Okay.
Because Gul'Dan was just so powerful with warlock magic that when Illidan just absorbed all the magic from it, it went into his body and made him look like a demon.
Crazy. All right.
So that's not too much of a spoiler or too much off track. This might be too off track. How did Gul'Dan die?
Gul'Dan? Okay, so basically, Gul'Dan was to put a very quick summary, Gul'Dan abandoned the Horde to get power for himself, and the leader of the Burning Legion didn't like that, Sargeras, and so basically Gul'Dan was killed by demons when he was trying to steal and absorb some secret power for himself.
Once again, being very selfish.
Yeah.
Yes. Like I said, the most supremely selfish character in Warcraft that I'm aware of. And there are some.
That is such an evil warlock thing to do.
Yes.
All right, that's funny. Okay.
But anyway, back to why Illidan is here. So Illidan sets to conquer Outland and make it his base of operations, and he's basically got, you're talking about Star Wars Rebellion, he's got his own whole team of outcasts with him, which we have on the next slide right here.
Okay, so I've got Lady Vashj, the Lurker Below, Kael'thas, Sunstrider, and Alar.
Yes. So Lady Vashj is leader of a group of Naga. Now, Naga have their own elaborate backstory, but essentially they used to be night elves who got corrupted and transformed by the old god N'Zoth, and these particular ones are going to help Illidan because the old gods are all about causing the chaos and everything. They're like, this Illidan guy, he's causing a lot of trouble. He's causing a lot of fighting. Why don't we send some people to help him out? And so Lady Vashj and the Naga are helping him out a bit. And then Kael'thas Sunstrider is the leader of the Blood Elves. And they've been through a lot. They just had their entire magical source of their life force completely destroyed by Arthas, the Death Knight, in order to resurrect Kel'Thuzad as a lich, which is its own story. But basically, they're doing really bad, and they're dealing with some magic addiction problems. And no, literally, like their bodies require magic sustenance, or they wither away and die. And
well, that's
stuff.
what
We're going insane.
I just played. Like when you play him, he says, "Magic, my people are addicted to it." Right? That says something
Exactly.
Like that.
Is that why Alaneth, when it draws, goes more?
Yeah, magic can be something very addicting in Warcraft if it's not used properly.
I was doing a little bit of preliminary research just for the show. The lurker below is a raid boss, it looks like. And,
yes. So it was essentially one of Lady Vash's guardians in this raid that she was in called the Serpent Shrine Caverns. So basically, you might say he's one of her bodyguards in a sense. And Alar, of course, is Kael'thas's personal phoenix. Which is something that the Blood Elves have as their symbol, and he's a fire mage in particular. Like say in the if you play the Jaina Book of Heroes, you're fighting him. He's like, fire is what calls to me as a mage, and that's kind of his whole thing there.
Right. No, it's interesting. Also, I mean, we can talk about it some other time, but it's interesting to see Jaina's transition from ice magic to fire magic. That's pretty cool. So,
yeah.
All right. So shall I move along to the next one? So essentially, just to recap, Illidan now is on the run because everybody's out to get him. He goes to Outland because this is kind of the hub, if you will, of all the different portals, right? Where the demons are here and the Draenei are here and the Shadow, this is a good place for him to kind of hide out. And then he decides he's going to take it over. And so he gets his homies to back him up, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he assembles his Avengers, and they also recruit Akama and his Broken because the demons have taken over this place called the Temple of Karabor, which was a sacred site for the Draenei, and Akama is really hoping that Illidan will help him get it back, and so they all team up. Illidan, Kael'thas, Lady Vashj, Akama, united together, all very powerful magic users, and then the picture that we have here of them going against Magtheridon. The demon doesn't stand a chance here. He's really powerful, but all four of these powerhouses together just completely clobber him. But the thing is that Illidan doesn't kill him. What he does is because he sees the Fel Orcs, and he's like, those are some really powerful soldiers there, and I could use some new recruits into my army to fight the demons, so I'll make more Fel Orcs because they're mindlessly obedient to whoever gives them the blood. And so what he does is he imprisons Magtheridon in this place called Hellfire Citadel and basically just uses him as a constant refueling of a blood bank.
Oh my God.
In order to so he can keep making more Fel Orcs. Wow. So Illidan is not a nice guy.
So he's bloodletting Magtheridon to fuel his army.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
This would
I said, he's emo.
Very emo.
It would make such a good movie though, like assembling these characters, right? And fighting these giant oh man. Or an animated
I
series.
wish that more people liked the Warcraft movie and they'd make lots and lots of sequels.
Actually, I heard in the news this week that they are supposedly another Warcraft movie in development. I read that yesterday or today. I'll have to find the article, but that would be cool. Hey, we have a question in chat from Lou Rolfs. Can we ask Goliath, would you have played WoW since the beginning of time to understand all this, or is it possible to get this from the books?
Okay, so here's the thing. I've actually only been playing WoW for the past 4 years. I know all of this stuff because of the books, especially the Chronicle ones. Also, some friends I talked to who know all this stuff, and just playing the game and looking at stuff. A lot of these things, like a lot of the backstory stuff, is stuff that was introduced later on. So it's not like the earliest time, because actually when the game first started, they didn't have very much story into it. They were more focused on it being gamed, and gradually they put more and more story elements into the game itself. But yeah, so all this stuff that I know, I learned from reading the books. If you just get the Chronicle books, or I also recommend looking on the Wowpedia website. I also get a lot of my information from there for my research. Those two sources combined, and then if you're interested in playing the game, of course, to actually experience some of the stuff, you should be able to, if you have enough interest to keep you going, be able to know just as much as I do about all this.
And if
it's just a time commitment.
If you've not played Warcraft 3, I highly suggest playing Warcraft 3.
Yes,
because
there is so much story condensed in the Warcraft 3 game. I know about it secondhand from reading stuff. I've yet to actually play it, but you can actually probably speed along and learn things quicker than I did if you actually played the Warcraft 3 game.
If you're interested in learning the Warcraft 3 stuff without playing it, it's like next up on my list to do like a YouTube series on, and just do like one episode per. You know, they break their missions down into kind of bite-sized pieces, and I'll just do a separate episode per mission.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know. I mean, it might be fun, might be boring, but I'll do it for sure. I have the re-released version. The graphics are really good. I have no idea what everyone was complaining about, because it looks awesome to me. It's probably the online play.
It was the online play people were most.
I could care less about that. So
same actually.
Okay. So all right. So let's move on to the next one here. I have Keli'dan the Breaker.
Right. Now this is the Fel Orc that Illidan put in charge of being Magtheridon's jailer. So this is the guy who makes sure that the demon doesn't break out, his magical chains maintain intact, and is in charge of, making sure the blood keeps flowing. And he was basically, they needed the most brutal, crazy orc they could to be able to handle this job, and he met all of the job qualifications.
Nice. Okay.
I wonder how that job interview went.
And did he have to do it with Zoom?
Oh, God.
It's pre-COVID, right?
Probably had to say the exact opposite of everything I had to say in my job interview last week.
Tell me all of the bad things about you. I don't want to know anything good.
Yeah.
How did you get fired from your last job? You killed people?
I hope it was because you killed all of your coworkers, because we need that level of brutality and dedication for this job here.
Oh my God, that's awesome. This is another one where the art matches the card, and the card art matches the game pretty well, with the giant shoulder pads included.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Armor
says
the Warcraft art style.
do you guys remember the Ben Brode Lich King job interview? Those were so funny.
Those are the best.
Oh man. Okay, so this is Magtheridon's jailer. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then we've got Kayn Sunfury. Now, let me ask you, there's definitely, like, I see I see like a big shift in the art. At least the in-game graphics here from like Keli'dan to Kayn Sunfury. So is this a different expansion, or did they just do a big update, or what? I was gonna say like something clearly is different here. So
yeah, so the Keli'dan is back from the Burning Crusade. We're talking about the very first expansion to the game,
okay,
over a decade ago. You know how fast computer technology improves these days and everything. So every expansion or so right now, they have some major graphical updates in order to fix some of the stuff or give things new models or new textures.
okay.
But some of the older content, not really at the top of the priority list. So Sunfury here is actually a character that is... we were seeing his model from the Legion expansion, which is only 4 years old, depending on if you're talking about when it started or when it ended. So a lot higher graphical technology in order to keep that up then. So yeah, that's the difference.
They did a great job translating this one. Like he looks perfect, like straight out of the card. And giant like warglaves included. I mean, you can see they're as big
beautifully impractical weapons.
Oh yes, I'm sure. Hey, quick question. Someone in the chat is asking, what order do you read the books in? Do you know?
Okay. If you're asking about Chronicles, read it in the order, Volume 1 through Volume 3. They'll give you a sense of a good overview of the history. Again, the type of stuff that I'm talking about. Generally, you want more of the big picture, what happened when, who was involved. If you're talking about the novels, those are a bit trickier. And honestly, I wouldn't even recommend reading all of them because they're written by different authors, and some of them have different writing styles that would appeal to different people more than others. And some of them, like for me, I would consider them to not even be very well written. But I would recommend. What?
Oh, I was just gonna say orc romance novel. Very cool.
Fabio on the cover.
Job's done.
So I'd recommend a couple key ones, mainly ones written by Christy Golden. She's a really good author. I'd recommend probably if you wanted to get started with them, the first one that would be good for you to read is the Arthas novelization by Christy Golden. It goes through his entire life and like how he became the Lich King. It's a really good setup. There's some other good ones, but I can't remember all of the titles to be able to give a list in order off the top of my head.
We can take this
discussion. I can provide that another time.
Yeah, we can take this discussion, I think, onto the Discord and chat about it.
Yeah, I'd be happy. I can do more research and do this for the Discord later on.
Sounds good.
I do have a list of the books in order that I'll post here and in the Discord too. But I'll
that would probably be a good starting point. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there we go. All right. So where were we? Oh, Kayn. So who is Kayn Sunfury, anyways? Aside from clearly he's a demon hunter, right?
Right. So so demon hunters mainly come from two things. There are night elves like Illidan, who lost a lot, and basically he got kicked out, but maybe he was onto something. Like people who have lost everything, like demons came and killed their families and they're just consumed with vengeance. And they're like Illidan, where they're willing to sacrifice everything, including having their eyes gouged out and being forced to consume a demon's heart and having it constantly whisper in their ears and try to fully corrupt them. And basically being a demon hunter is a very disturbing and uncomfortable experience.
So what could go wrong?
Yes. If you want to know more about this, there's actually a book called Illidan by William King that is all about this part right here. So basically, Illidan formed the Demon Hunters. And the others were Blood Elves. Like I said, like people came along with Kael'thas, and some of them got recruited as well. But they're basically warriors created in Illidan's own image that are his super secret task force. Like, he is ridiculously paranoid about this stuff because he never knows who could be a spy for the demons, and this is his secret weapon to use against them. So, like, no one knows. Either they don't know that these demon hunters exist, or they just don't know what they're for, and just like think, weird stuff's going on. And so, basically that's the whole thing. Illidan's dedicating a lot of time to train them in secret. Part of the problem here is that he's so dedicated to the secrecy that he's alienating a lot of his allies. Kael'thas actually just full-on joins with the demons because he's like, Illidan isn't giving me what I need here. The demons can provide some sort of magic to fuel me, even if it's spell magic. And other things, like Illidan's so focused on his project that he's losing a couple of the other people right here.
Interesting. Okay.
And then that leaves an opening because one of those people is Akama. Remember I said Akama allied with Illidan because it would help him to reclaim this sacred place, this temple that the demons had taken over. Mm-hmm. Well, Illidan did do that, but he also just kind of turned it into his own personal headquarters and didn't give it back to Akama. And he's like, I'll get around to it, soon. It'll happen soon. And Akama just comes to the conclusion that he's never going to do it, and he's just as bad as the demons. And so he wants to find a way to get rid of Illidan. And so that's when Maiev Shadowsong comes into the picture here.
Yeah.
She was his jailer. Remember the whole, I was bound for 10,000 years. And all that stuff that he likes to run about. Maiev was the one who was watching over him as his jailer for that 10,000 years. And she's a little obsessed with catching him and putting him back in prison again.
And by a little, you mean a lot?
Yes, a lot. Like, full-on obsessed. Like, nothing else matters. It's just the hunting Illidan is her only goal in life. Some people theorize that, like, it's almost to the point where she might have repressed romantic attractions to him, but I think it's just all mixed up together with this ridiculous obsession.
What's kind of funny about Maiev, now that I think about it, and Illidan, is when Maiev first came out. That's when we had Questrogue, like at the very, very beginning, and I didn't know that there was a connection between Maiev and Illidan, but I had the legendary Illidan card in my Questrogue, like, just for fun, because I had a golden Illidan, right? And so every time you played the spell, instead of the little flame guy that you got, I was getting the 5/5s. And
okay.
Very nice tech work, yeah.
Yeah, well, I just did it because I had golden Illidan, and I'm like, let's get some free 5/5s out of Illidan.
And now it's golden Savior.
And I was doing this, and this is meta. Like, I didn't even know that Maiev and Illidan had a connection whatsoever. But yeah, she did love him, and I didn't know it, but I put them together anyway. It was meant to be.
And it's another good flavor card too. I mean, like the dormant for 2 turns. I mean, obviously you can't go dormant for 1,000 years or 10,000 years or whatever it was, but it's still like that's a good flavor that they made with the card as well. So
exactly, yeah. Again, excellent. And she's the leader of a group of night elves called the Wardens, who are all about. They actually have their own vault where they imprison like the greatest threats of Azeroth. It was a dungeon in the Legion expansion. Basically, kind of like they run a high security prison, and so it's very much their thing about imprisoning demons and whatever else they consider to be too dangerous.
Okay,
but so she's literally chased Illidan to another world, and then Akama tries to ally with her, and because he wants to betray Illidan because he thinks Illidan's just as bad as Magtheridon. But something goes wrong because Illidan kind of finds out.
Whoops.
And this is where Akama Prime comes in, which is on the next slide.
All right. Yeah, here we go. I couldn't find any in-game, but here we go. I think that picture looks about right.
Mm-hmm. So basically, what Illidan did was he ripped out a part of Akama's soul called the Shade of Akama, which is basically the incarnation, his darker side, his greed and lust and all that stuff. And Illidan controls this, and he can basically, if he commands it, use it to destroy Akama, sick his shade on him, and it would eat him from the inside out or something. And it would also destroy Akama's entire tribe. And so it's basically literal blackmail. And Akama is forced to betray Maiev, which is why you saw that image of her behind bars.
That's interesting. I'm going to go back a slide. I thought that was him behind bars and her reaching in. That's so interesting.
No, he was forced to trick her by Illidan, and then she ended up getting locked up.
I saw that backwards as well. Cool.
But yeah, that's and I love, this is another amazing flavor stealth for the Prime, because he's literally a shadow. He's a living shadow of soul here.
Interesting. Okay.
And
yeah, all right. Yeah, this is another one where if you look at the artwork here from the lore books, down to the details on the shoulder pads with the skull and the spikes, it is straight up on the card right there. It's so cool. And the glowing blue eyes, they did such a good job. And the folks in chat are realizing Blizzard does such a good job with the flavor on these, and your average player would have no idea, just no clue. And clearly, they put a lot.
That's what I'm here for,
right? Love it. Okay, all right. So let me move to the next one. Yeah, this is a battle here.
Yeah, so don't worry, guys. We're getting near the end here. I know it's been heck, we've been doing this for 2 hours 40 minutes at this point. But don't worry, this won't be a 10-hour one. I still think it's amazing that you guys did for 10 hours straight talking about those.
That was I'm not gonna say it was a mistake because we had a great time, but my goodness, that was something that it'll go down. That's one for the books for sure.
Yep.
Anyways, so what is this?
Anyway,
what is this war here?
So remember, like I said before, that Illidan was so secretive that he was starting to alienate his ally. Thing. Basically, he was causing a lot of trouble for the Burning Legion here. He was starting to score some serious victories against them, creating portals and invading their worlds and stealing important knowledge and completely destroying them in some cases. And basically, they thought, okay, so he's too hard for us to be able to handle ourselves, but what if we got the people that he's alienated to destroy him for us? So basically what the demons did was they staged an invasion. They pretended they were following Azeroth, but it was really just to lure the Alliance and Horde in there. And because Illidan was doing so many shady things, He's got making the Fel Orcs there. He literally has demons that are recruited into his ranks. He's, infusing with Fel magic. He's doing a lot of stuff that people rightly assume is evil. They don't know that he's trying to destroy the Legion. They think that he's working with the Burning Legion. And so they decide to attack him because they think they are doing something good. But really, they have just been tricked by the demons into fighting what the one person who is the closest to destroying the Legion permanently. But at any rate, that's what's going on. The invasion of Outland through the Dark Portal, and that's what you see in the image. On one side, you see all the demon armies that are kind of either a part of Illidan's forces or the ones who are just kind of pretending to be in order to lure them here. And then on the other side, you see the armies of the Alliance and Horde coming through ready to fight.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure because the colors are a little bit, it looks like kind of a yellowish green on one side and the red on the other side. And so
it's a bit of a hazy style of art.
Okay. And so at this point, like the land of Draenor went from this like nice place to like this fully thrashed place, right? Because of all the different portals and demons and fell magic and
exactly. It's like completely wrecked right now. There's one somewhat nice place still called Nagrand, and that's where the still live, and a couple orc tribes and everything that managed to avoid getting corrupted. But aside from that one little area, yeah, it's pretty much various different flavors of completely messed up places. Like you got some areas that like Dark Corrupt Forest. You got this area that you're seeing right here is called Hellfire Peninsula. It's like completely barren. You got an area called Stone Talon Mountains, full of like really spiky mountains. This one area called the Nether area, which is the Nether Storm. That's it, which is basically like partially consumed by like the Fel and the Void and all that stuff, which incidentally is where Boom Labs is set. That's where Dr. Boom has his laboratory in that expansion. But yeah, that's what Outland is right now. A bunch of different flavors of messed up places.
That's funny. Okay. So yeah, no, someone pointed out the Nagran Slam.
Yes, exactly. And I love when there's a fun pun in the Hearthstone cards.
That's great. Okay, so there's this big battle here. What is the outcome of that? Or is that something that we're gonna look at?
That's something that takes, well, it takes an entire expansion for all this to happen. So that's what the next several cards we're going to go through a bit of that here.
Okay, so next up I've got Lady Liadrin.
Right. So Lady Liadrin is a member of some armies of the Horde. The Blood Elves have just recently been brought into the Horde. And they're out wondering, because, Kael'thas went off on this big expedition, and he said, okay, I know you guys are starving for magic, and I'm going to get you some magic. Just wait right here. I'll be right back. And he hasn't come back, so they're wondering what's going on. And so they're sending their expedition in there, and Lady Liadrin is Blood Elf Paladin, a member of the Blood Knights is what the order is called. And so she is a very prominent character in the Burning Crusade expansion. This is one of those things where if I were to get too much into backstories and the specifics to explain much, we'd be here for another hour. And so I'm afraid you're just going to have to be satisfied with the basics, that she is basically one of the leaders of the assault on Illidan and on Kael'thas, and they realize how corrupted they've become.
Okay.
And she's also becomes dedicated to serving the Naru as well when they meet. Remember those holy light beings that were with the Draenei. Mm-hmm. Actually, if like the card Hand of Adal, that crystal creature, that Adal is Naru. So that's an example of what they look like if you're familiar with that card. Maybe I should have had you put that in here, but I didn't think of it.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Here's the next one up is Yasiel Windsinger.
Right.
Probably mispronouncing the name, but
That's as close as I know, actually. Like I said, I know a lot of these names, but some of them I still have some trouble with. But anyway, she is obviously by her class, you can tell she's a druid card. She is the leader of a group of druids called the Cenarian Expedition, because you guys know Cenarius, right?
Yeah.
Gul'Dan, ancient lands. And so yeah, he's basically taught the Night Elves and Teron Druidism. And the Cenarian Circle is basically kind of this faction neutral group of druids that all work together to help preserve the world and stuff. And so they send an expedition to help with the assault on Draenor and maybe to get some life growing back there again. And she's the leader of that, particularly in the region known as Zangarmarsh, which is where the other druid legendary is from Outland with that Archspore. So they have that connection of being in the same general zone there of Zangarmarsh.
Okay.
So I think that's cool for what they did for having the two legendaries for the set, where they generally found a way to have them linked together, at the very least by a general zone of some sort.
Very cool. All right. Shall I move on to the next one?
Yes.
Actually, I had a quick question.
Yeah.
So what's the significance to the flavor on this card? Is there any significance?
This is a bit more of an effect that's not quite so flavor matching. I mean, unless you just say that she's a powerful druid and it's easier for her to cast spells. But there's nothing. It's a more general type of effect, so it's not really matching anything very specific that's unique to her character.
Okay. Good question. Next one up, I've got Astromancer Solarian.
Right. So Astromancer Solarian is one of the bosses who is working with Kael'thas and Strider after he's been completely corrupted and thrown in with the demon, and is part of this raid called Tempest Keep, where the players you're assaulting, trying to drive them out, take them out. And now the character itself doesn't really have any lore. We honestly know pretty much nothing about her, because, as I said, back in the earlier days of the game, they didn't really have very much story in it, and no backstory was provided for this particular boss in the game at that point, and they haven't had reason to go back and give her one so far. So I can't tell you anything about her as a character, but I can tell you that the flavor of this card and the art is amazingly spot on, because one of her key mechanics in the game is that she becomes, as you can see in the picture, this giant void walker looking type of being, where she basically absorbs so much magic she becomes one with the void or something.
Why call?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And so then her prime image just perfectly captures that, and with her powerful magic. So not much that I can say from a story point, but I wanted to point out just how amazing a match this is, and explaining exactly where she does fit in. Because technically it is a character, she just doesn't have any story.
Yeah. No, it's cool though, and I love these. I get such a kick out of it when the art in the game matches the art on the cards. It's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yes. One of the things I get so excited about season for a new expansion is wondering, are there going to be any characters that I really like? Or it's funny when I recognize character and people are like, who? And I'm like, no, there's really cool backstory and everything, and this is a cool raid boss and stuff. And like I say, it requires that bridge knowledge, because there's a bunch of people who play the Warcraft who don't play a Hearthstone, and who probably couldn't care less that there's this amazing match of mechanics and lore. But I happen to be the one who walks both paths.
The card is actually a pretty good card, right?
Yeah, one
Like
that's on my 2-craft list.
Awesome, just to jam in like a Reno mage deck. Like it's just cool, right?
Yeah.
It's got value, and it's got a mini Yogg like built into the second half.
Yeah, but it's like a good Yogg. I mean, this is a new.
A Yogg that says it doesn't attack itself.
Yes.
Like, it says it on the text. Like, I'm not going to shadow word death myself.
This was a new. I mean, this was a new mechanic for them, right? It casts 5 random spells that target enemies if possible.
Yes.
So that's interesting. You know, I mean, granted, as long as it's not like buffing enemies, you know, but
Well, it's mage spells. So...
Mage spells, so yeah. It's not paladin. Very much.
That's true. That's
if you
true.
somehow got this as like a thief priest or
mage,
something,
right?
then maybe you would worry.
Yeah, they are mage spells. So
Mage, yeah. I should play this card more.
I know, right? I just crafted
Actually,
it in gold. It's awesome.
Like I have it. I haven't even played it. I don't think.
I think you could probably jam her in just about anything. Like, I mean, not that you should, but like, it's just a really good card.
Why not? I like playing cards. Like, I don't need to have the most like top meta deck. Sometimes I just want to have fun.
Preach, brother.
And that card, darn fun, right? Like, it's fun. Oh, wait. So when it casts those spells, do those count towards Yogg points? Because you didn't cast the spell, the card cast the spell.
I don't think they
know.
do. I don't think so, but
Card casting would not. Yeah.
Interesting.
that's a shame. But it could go, oh man, Casino Mage, right? Any mage? Yeah.
So honestly, something that I think would be amazing, either as just something that people in the community did, or something that if it would be possible to make a game mode, I don't know, but would be like building decks not around attempting to, get the best meta combinations, but building decks with like telling a story with what characters and spells you chose to put into your deck there. I don't know, I think it'd be fun if you get enough people to do it where they just built decks to tell the stories and then just for fun saw which one happened to win.
Yeah.
We probably still need a few more of the hero portraits becoming actual cards too, right? I mean,
That's a fair point.
yeah.
Or even just like, I'm going to make a deck where it's just minions that are elves or just minions that are dwarves or something like that, Could be an interesting challenge. But, I have trouble finding people who would find that to be something that they'd want to do for understandable reasons.
Right.
But anyway, so after a huge campaign in Outland with just a bunch of different raids, bunch of different assaults, whittling away Illidan's forces, fighting and defeating Lady Vashj and the Lurker Below and Zangarmarsh, defeating Kael'thas, and managing to free Maiev and ally with Akama again. They prepare for a full-on assault on Illidan's stronghold in the Black Temple. And that's where the last bit of our, the last couple cards, we are almost at the end, guys. Our last couple of cards here are about bosses and loot from the final Black Temple raid fighting against Illidan. So what's the next one that we have
next
here?
up I have is the Demon Supreme Abyssal. It's an 8-mana 12/12.
Right. So this is an interesting case where this is a common card, but it's actually based on a raid boss called Supremus. And that this is basically this huge giant that is, you can like steps on you and everything as boss mechanics. Pretty challenging unless you know what you're doing. And if you do know what you're doing, there's acts for people who would say it was easy. Because they're really good at the game. But anyway, so yeah, he's basically, like I said, Illidan had demons that absorbed into his ranks because they just respected power, and they're like, okay, you were clearly able to take out the Magtheridon guy, so you're more powerful. Sure, we'll work for you. Why not? So Supremacy is one of those. Is actually sort of a demon construct who is created by demons by infusing, connecting like powerful stones together with magic. And when you beat him up enough, the magic just kind of dissipates. It's just a bunch of rocks that fall down because that's all that's left of him. But yeah, I find it's interesting. You know, it's the like they clearly wanted to put him in, but they'd already used up all their legendary slots. So they just found a way to kind of put him in as a common and just not give him a name, just give him something more general of a title.
8 mana 12/12 is pretty beefy.
Yeah. See, it reflects how big he is.
I mean, it reflects his giant nature, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay.
And now we come to one of my favorites with the Reliquary of Souls. How do you guys like this card?
I think
it's surprisingly good, actually. Like, it's very annoying to deal with. It was interesting here, and I didn't realize this. I mean, you can see it in the card art now. I didn't realize until I was doing the homework on it, but it reminds me of the character from Marvel Comics. I don't remember the name anymore, but I'll think about it. But essentially, it's got the 3 faces on it, right? And it rotates.
Yes.
And now that I see the faces from the game, you can see it on the card art, but like I wouldn't have known until I saw that. So you only get 2 of the 3 parts here. The card itself is it's pretty good, actually.
hint to the future, they're gonna add a 3rd level to the primes.
Well, that's the way I figured it might have worked. Knowing that it has 3, I'm surprised it didn't do it where like Pyros, where Pyros is 3. Yeah, like why
that would have been cool. Yeah. So remember the soul mirror that I talked about an hour or so ago about the Archangune, the place where there were all the Draenei souls that were attracted to.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, see, the thing is that magical portals that tear fat holes in fabric of reality to demon-infested worlds take a lot of energy, and Illidan needed a constant source of energy in order to fuel those portals for his expeditions and raids. So he kind of raided the sacred city of the dead of the Draenei and stole all their souls and killed a bunch of Draenei there and took their souls as well. And the Reliquary of Souls is basically like this huge storage battery of souls for him to use to power all of his portals.
Oh, interesting.
Yep. That's why they're the essence of sorrow, the essence of desire, and the essence, because they're really sad, they're really angry and suffering, and they really desire to get out of this reliquary.
I can imagine.
Okay. No, that's actually okay. Is there anything having to do? So I know this card has lifesteal in Hearthstone. Is there any sort of like flavor with that? Does it, Yes.
Some of these things reflect some of the different mechanics from the different phases of the fight. So it would be like, first you fight the sorrow phase, and you could do things that would help, that would weaken you. And then then it switches to the desire phase, and then it switches to the anger phase. And I'm a little rusty. I did write a lore guide talking about how well each of the primes matches the flavor. And I think I gave this, I can't remember specifically what I researched and wrote, but you can check it out in Out of Cards if you're interested.
Yeah,
I think I gave it a relatively high mark, that the different things matched some certain mechanics of the fight really well, about like the particular type of things that you had to fight against, or the spells that it would cast on you to damage you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll link to the article in the show notes and also in the Twitch chat.
Sure.
Okay, so next up we've got the Bulwark of Azzinoth, one of the legendary weapons.
Mm-hmm. So this is interesting because this is actually a loot drop from Illidan as the final boss. So you get, there's a chance for, people want really good gear for, they grind a raid, try, we gotta get to fight Illidan each week. Maybe he'll finally drop that thing that I've been wanting for months or whatever. The way that raids often work out. It's why I love the flavor text for Reliquary of Souls, where it says, sorrow, desire, and anger, basically your raid night. And the loot is a part of that. But the Bulwark of Azzinoth Azzinoth is this demon that Illidan fought way back when the Burning Legion made its first invasion, called the War of the Ancients, 10,000 years ago. And so he basically took the demon's stuff as his own after you beat him, which is something that you can do in the Hearthstone for the Illidan storyline, the unlocking the Demon Hunter. That's one of the first fights that you have where you're fighting against Azzinoth. And the Bulwark is basically his chest plate. But it's like he's so big that you can use it as a shield when you're a normal sized mortal.
Oh, I see.
That's pretty good. That's pretty funny.
And it was known to be a very for tank warriors. It was a very good shield stats wise, apparently. So it's legendary in that sense that it was something that a lot of people wanted and a lot of people knew about.
Hence the text of only taking, like, you don't take damage, just the one durability goes away because it's so big and strong.
Exactly.
That's really... you don't get the full picture of it, like from the Hearthstone card. Like you see this big shield, but like in the picture from WoW, you see a Tauren warrior, which are huge, right? And the shield like takes up his entire body.
Mm-hmm.
So
and this was the breastplate on the demon. Gives you an idea of how big he was.
That's hilarious. So if you were like, this is a Tauren here, but if you were like a human and had this, like it'd be bigger than you, right?
Yes and no, because Warcraft gear will scale to your character. So I can't tell you exactly what the canon size is, but so whatever your character is, you'll be able to have it roughly the same proportion, but it still is, something as nearly as big as you are, and that was just on the guy's chest. That's still pretty impressive when you think about it.
Yeah.
It'd be really funny if you were a dwarf and you had to like drag it around.
I am a dwarf.
but every time you needed to block, it was like bam, and then you drop it on the ground again.
Man, would it work out?
Oh, that's good. That's good. All right, the next one up. Then here is the Warglaives of Azzinoth.
Right, and those are from the same demon. Illidan took those weapons from, and they are his primary weapons that you see in all of the images of him that he's fighting with, and he uses them in the raid fight. And they were also one loot that could drop. That because remember, this is way before Demon Hunter was a class that you could play, but there were a couple Demon Hunters in the game. And so sometimes people would want to be able to roleplay as one. So, they just make a Night Elf character of a different class, and they really hope that those Warglaives drop so that they can pretend to be Illidan.
They look super cool. They have like kind of lightning on them, and
yeah,
and they're also huge. So
yes,
clearly a very practical weapon.
Who's the character in the picture there? There's a bald guy with the little chin thing going on. That's not Illidan, right?
No. I mean, when I did the research just for the picture, I found a lot of different pictures of different characters in WoW holding these. So, I mean, if I had to guess, and I'd let Goliath say, but I think that it's just like this is a loot drop, and so this is probably people's just custom characters carrying these.
Oh, just random.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay.
I'm gonna say something super nerdy here. It looks like the Klingon weapon, the Batleth, I believe.
Yeah,
is what
it totally does.
Yeah,
Maybe that was some inspiration. Who knows?
yeah.
Nerds watch other nerd stuff and make nerdy things. So who's to say that the people who designed this didn't watch Star Trek? I don't know much about Star Trek myself, but maybe they did.
Things are always borrowed. Ideas are always borrowed.
From across the nerdiverse. But anyway, yeah. So, and then I think we just have 1/2 cards left to talk about then.
Yeah, hold on. Sorry. Wait, I want to. Let's see here.
That's all right.
Yeah, pull up a Batleth. Is that what you're doing?
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great mind.
There you go.
Right?
It looks pretty similar. I mean, except they're holding them different ways, right? But yeah, that's basically it looks pretty similar. Okay, all right, enough of that. Okay, so yeah, we're almost to the end of this. So this is Canrathad Ebonlock, the human form, anyways.
Right.
Sorry, I'm still laughing at the cosplay of this guy holding the Batleth. Like,
That's pretty good, right?
that was the best picture you could find.
I know. It was. Hey, I was trying to go as fast as I can. We're doing this live.
Yeah. Okay, so Ebonlock. So here's an interesting thing that he was a warlock who was called the Circle of the Black Harvest. And he was very interested in uncovering how Illidan was able to use and contain so much demon magic without being a slave to the demons, without being he could use the power, but he wasn't completely corrupted by it, to the point where, because he was still able to fight against the Legion. And so he basically went on an expedition to investigate this stuff, and that's him as his human form. That's why he says there is so much untapped power in this world, because he's like, I want to know how the heck Illidan stuff. So he's going and kind of finding ways to try to basically replicate the transformation that Illidan had, which is why he looks the way he does in his prime.
All right, I'll transition to the prime here. Yeah.
So the ritual didn't quite go as he planned.
He got really long fingers.
Yes. He kind of did end up losing control and becoming really corrupted, and he wasn't able to accomplish quite the same that Illidan did. But then later on in the Legion expansion, because if you play a warlock, then you actually become the leader of that group, the Council of the Black Harvest, in your fight against the Burning Legion.
Oh,
and you're eventually able to find this guy and siphon all the fel magic out away from him. And so you can return him to human form, and then he becomes one of your followers, which is pretty cool. But it's all about the summoning power, and like his battle cry as his line as the prime, where he says, servants of the Black Harvest, because that's the group that he leads, and is about mastering the summoning abilities. That's the where he summons those demons as his ability right there.
Interesting. Okay. This is another one where I couldn't find like the art of it. The human form clearly was like updated graphics, where the demon form looked a little bit older. I don't know if this was I assume this is because he was corrupted in one of the older sets, and then in the newer set when you're taking over, that's when you revert him back.
Correct. Yes. This story actually appeared in the Mist expansion. About where there was a thing where like he broke loose and you had to lock him back up or seal him away. Then Legion came along, where you could fix him a bit more. And so yeah, they didn't really bother because the model was you see him as a human most of the time in the newer expansion.
Mhm.
So they didn't bother to give him a completely new corrupted texture for that.
Okay, no, that's interesting though. The flavor is really good.
Yeah.
All right, I've got a question then. If like hypothetically, if I were to play WoW, like where would you even start?
Well, as it just so happens, right now with Shadowlands, they are revamping to try to improve the experience because it's been really confusing for the past several years. So what they're doing is they're making a brand new starting zone that makes it easy to get introduced to the story, to your chosen faction, your basic abilities, all that stuff. And then what they're doing is well, you remember Chromie as a card for some of these events, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she is a bronze dragon who takes on the humanoid form of, and she is really sweet and just adorable, and I love her. But anyway, so she has bronze dragon time powers, and the way that they're doing it is that in order to level up, you can choose, like, she'll time travel you back to an expansion of your choice for you to be able to level through an experience. So it's a whole lot better for new players, so you can experience a more concrete chunk of the story as you're working your way up to the newest content with the Shadowlands, and then the end game content, like the latest raids and all that stuff. So I'd say that right now, or at least when the pre-patch drops in a couple weeks or so, we're not entirely certain when, but it's coming out relatively soon, is actually, if you haven't played it before, then it's a great opportunity to do it. And by the way, if you are considering it, they have a friend program where, like, if you bring in people, then you can both get stuff. So let me know, and I can provide you my code if you're actually interested.
I love the idea of replaying these, like, just for the storyline. It seems super cool. So this game has been around for years and years and years and years, right? But I do like the idea that I could jump in potentially as like a new player, replay the old mission stuff, and have it not be, I guess the other question would be, can I, like, typically you do one of these raid bosses and it's not meant to be a single player boss, right? It's meant to be like you and a bunch of other people at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work? I mean, I suppose there's other players replaying these old missions, but is there also, like, I don't know, like AI NPCs that help you or anything like that?
Okay, so there's two different ways to do this. You wouldn't end up doing the raids while you were leveling through that particular content. Like, you wouldn't actually do this Black Temple run while you were leveling through the through the Outland content, because there's probably wouldn't be enough people for that sort of thing. Generally, what you do is either if you just want to be able to see it, you might level up until you're a much higher level than the raid level, and then you can just go through and solo everything because you're so much powered. Or what they do nowadays is on certain weeks, they have what they call time walking, which is where they take a certain amount of dungeons and occasionally a raid from past expansions and make it to the level of current content where it's still relevant to the power levels. and will actually give you rewards appropriate to what you are currently doing in the endgame stuff. And Black Temple is actually one of them. So on certain weeks out of the year, there will actually be people who are doing full-on getting together for raids of the Black Temple. And the same for a couple other raids on different weeks when events happen. So that's probably the main way that you either out-leveling something and soloing it, or waiting for an event and then doing it with a proper raid group, if that's your thing.
Okay.
Is the lore only in the expansion stuff? Because like my experience with WoW is only to get the Lady Liadrin hero portrait. I played, and it was just quest. And I didn't really see any lore in there.
Did you read the quest text at all? A lot of people skip by and don't even bother.
I probably did. I'm totally like a skip guy.
Racing to get to.
That's why you didn't see much lore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm guilty of doing that in WoW as well. Just like, okay, come on, give me my quest.
But yeah, and like I've said, they've gotten better at having more lore in the story. Things were a bit more confusing the further back in the content you go. They weren't always the greatest at delivering it, or even have a lot. In fact, the story that I've told you today is stuff that was added in later on, or even retconned in order to fix the story mistakes that they made back when it was current content in just their first expansion and stuff. That, which is what the Chronicle books are largely about. So like, okay, we're fixing here's how we're going to make this story actually make sense by changing a couple of these things and having, a cohesive canon for everything.
Yeah, those books are super cool. I'm gonna have to start getting those.
I highly recommend them.
So we're sort of at the end. Like, I don't have like, this is where we leave the storyline. So what follows this? I mean,
Outland is not been super relevant to the story. It is where it has been revisited a couple times. Characters like, for example, Thrall's grandma lives there, and so he's gone to Outland a couple times to visit with family and learn more about how to be a shaman and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's not something that, it's basically stuff happened there, and it's been about as peaceful as Outland can be ever since, while other main story stuff happens in whatever area the newest expansion is set in.
Okay.
So the part where with the Ebonlock is really most recent of anything connected with that, with Outland and with the Hearthstone expansion bringing up.
Gotcha. So what is the next? There's a new expansion coming out shortly for WoW, right? What is it called again?
Shadowlands. It is literally the realm of death. We're going to the afterlife and going to see a lot of dead characters and where they ended up.
Oh, okay. So this is the
including Kael'thas.
The animated short that just started being released on YouTube is like the prequel, if you will, for that. And so
yes, it's showing. They're showing just a little bit of some of the different problems going on in these different realms of the dead that we're going to have to solve as the players when we get there.
Interesting. Okay. Well, this is a good way for them to bring back characters. Like I saw in the first little animated short, like Uther is back.
Yep.
And so
wouldn't it, like when he's all blue and has the wings, wouldn't that be an awesome additional skin in Hearthstone?
Yes.
Oh boy. Take my money.
Born to be wild.